Hi, Tarot Ass Backward. It's the 8th of September, and I'm reading tonight because I had a question that kicked in a couple days ago, and I don't know why it did. Oh, I know why it did. It was actually after a certain live, and when I was just going over things with my guides, I wondered if, since they're supposedly making contact with us soon, if our galactic friends, for all intents and purposes, for entertainment purposes only, if our galactic friends have egos they know that best serve them when they're kept in check. Now, this brings up the issue of whether aliens or have egos. It also brings up the issue of, our galactic friends. It would be politically incorrect to refer to them as anything else. And I guess it means, what does the ego mean for them if they have it? Is it something maybe that, unlike us, for instance, we let it impose so much on us that it's working in ways we don't even imagine? Yet, do they have the technology to keep it in check, or, for themselves? Or, does it get in the way of their daily lives the way fear would, since fear is ego-based? It's just basically, these are questions I have before they get here, because whatever we find out is going to be helpful, especially when we're talking about the ego, because of the philosophical principles involved. So I wanted to look at that. And then the other part is when best kept in check, which kind of implies the things I just talked about. So why don't we ask the question, how do our galactic friends work with ego? And I guess that would suppose that they have them. Should we go into it like that? Maybe you could make a case that everything and every living thing that is, or maybe you could make the case the rock has an ego. I don't know. If they can feel, if they're a living being, if people come back from lives as rocks and remember them, did they have an ego? I guess the question would be, if our galactic friends have an ego, do they best know how to manage? Do they best know how to manage it? And maybe that will give me, based on the cards, Libby Meister Tarot's deck, a better sense for what's going on. So let's just approach it from that standpoint. God of my angels, assuming there is an ego that aliens have, are they best able to keep it in check? And if so, when it works for them, in what ways does it work better for them? God of my angels, if our galactic friends have egos, how are their egos kept in check, and how are they best of service to them? And how would they be of best service to us? Let's give that a spin. That's a bit much for one question, but let's see. All right. Okay. All right, the first thing I'm getting is that they do have one, because what I'm first seeing in the first row has to do with lies and manipulation, meaning they're not afraid as much as we are of the truth and how it would be deliverable, or accessible or tolerated if we told the truth more. Because I got the people, right, through difficult messaging can still, is like a down reversed or whatever, can still look up. Yet, and this is an interesting one, yet it doesn't have to be broadcast to the world. So in other words, unlike maybe more vain people who have a problem with the truth, unlike the politicians that have a problem with the truth, or I'm also getting a hit on people in entertainment who have egos, in whatever medium, who are more concerned with the spotlight and then maybe the reality of confronting what they are. I think in that regard, socially, it's kept in better check than it would be here, and it's best served when they're constantly doing that work of cleaning the energy, because their sense of being full, and this is the second row, comes from the destruction, and I get fear again, of their own fear, of all the chatter or noise. And from that comes freedom. So that was pretty in one way glibly stated, but yet the message I got, they're all about truth. They're all about, what I'm getting is that personal ascension lifts the collective, because when I get communication upside down, it makes me think of privacy, or going into yourself, or kind of being like a hermit. But for the collective, let's say for instance, for the collective, via the reality of their own shame, they still can look up. And they still can be positive while looking inward. It's so hard for us to sit with ourselves, but they can look at it and be positive when they're by themselves and they have no one to communicate with. And they're spiritually full, their cups are filled with the destruction, if you will, of that fear that would come from truth, that we all have about ourselves, about the world. Because that's all just talk and noise to them, and from that realization comes freedom. So to me, they've put their ego in check in the best sense that we don't. Everyone has to be thin, and everyone has to worry about what the other's thinking or keeping up with the Joneses. I don't see that. So that's a very interesting read. I will be back momentarily. Thank you.